Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to PlayLoad. This is all my video game pickups for the month of July 2025. And we're going to talk all about a lot of weird stuff from all over the place. Before we do that, though, if you could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't done that before, and check out all the social media stuff in the description. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, my travel channel, etc. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Let's get into it. Yes. So as I said, this is all stuff from July, sort of. If I'm completely honest with you, this first pile technically was acquired in June. It's just that the previous episode of PlayLoad was filmed before that happened, just due to scheduling conflicts. And if I'm also honest, due to scheduling conflicts, this episode was filmed right before I went off to Brazil. And I basically am landing at about the time this is coming out. So there was no time to, if I picked up anything in Brazil, it's not included in this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and get on with it. First stuff up. I took a trip out at the very end of June, technically, with my buddy Sunshine. We decided to roll up to Detroit, Toronto, and Buffalo just to get pizza, to do Canadian stuff, then to leave, etc. We flew out of Buffalo instead of flying out of Toronto. But yeah, so we just kind of had a little mini adventure looking for stuff. I didn't do a whole lot of filming up there, but I decided to make one video, which you guys will see, that is just a microcosm game hunting adventure to just one store. It would be this one, Toy Rat in Milton, Ontario, Canada, which I maintain is the greatest video game store in North America. And no, I'm not just saying that because I'm wearing the t-shirt. Anybody who's watched my channel for any length of time knows that I've been very consistent on that, and I've been talking about that like since the beginning of the channel. Like right there at the beginning, I was talking about Toy Rat because I'd found it and I was just like, this place is amazing. A dude who runs, his name's Evo. He's awesome. So I try to go up there whenever I can, but obviously I don't live in that area. So whenever the opportunity strikes, I take it. And I try to bring people up there because people always find stuff. People who like weird will always find stuff. So while we were there, Sunshine killed it. He bought tons of stuff. You guys will see his pickups in that separate video. Me, on the other hand, like my North American game hunting is kind of limited these days because I'm mostly down to like weird things and just a couple that I just somehow missed. But like I said, Toy Rat delivers on the weird. So in addition to the shirts, I got this pile. And it's going to be very strange to you and probably one of those like eyebrow what moments. I got 3 games, we'll just leave it at that for the moment, called, we'll just go over them. We have The Last Bounty Hunter, we have Drug Wars, and we have Shadowin. Now, what are these games? They don't look like they're for anything. Here's the thing. Each one of these are DVDs, technically. In the sense of how they operate. They are basically games that used the functionality of the DVD menu and the fact that you could click it with a remote as gameplay. They're basically FMVs. In fact, some of them literally are. I believe Bounty Hunter and I want to say Drug Wars both came out on things like the 3DO back in the day. They're just like cleaner versions of those exact same games using the exact same footage, etc., almost like remasters. But the cool thing is they all specifically mention they're either Xbox compatible or PS2 compatible because that was true. They are technically part of the library-ish, but they could also work on a VM Labs Nuon. So technically they're Nuon games as well. Or just any DVD player. A PS4 could run these things, you know? So it's just kind of interesting, but I thought that was cool. The other thing that's cool about it is there weren't that many of them, not shocking. But even more bizarrely, and I didn't find this out until I was up there, this one in particular is funny. These are by American Laser Games. Which country do you think these would have come out in? Canada, not the US. These actually weren't, from what I can tell, these weren't released in the US, but they were released in Canada. If they were released in the US, I've certainly never seen them, but on the back it just says printed in Canada, like all over it. It says it came out of Digital Leisure, 33 Cedar Road, Gormley, Ontario, Canada. They all say that. So I have to assume they were only distributed in Canada because that's also where I found it. I could be wrong, it may be a specious argument, but this is what I'm going off of. So either way, I got this stuff at Toy Rat, and it was really very cool. So I came back, and then the beginning of July, for those, this is going to sound like a side thing, but I think you guys you'll understand why later. For those who don't know, there is a possibility that within a year, this setup that you've come to know will no longer be this. I may be moving. That may be happening. And to that end, we'll see how finances play out, if it's possible to maintain, whatever. I may be moving into a house. And if that's the case, well, it is the case in the sense that I have the house. That'll make more sense later. But I do need to furnish it. I don't really have the money for that. So I've been just kind of doing a lot of Goodwill hunting. And so when I was out at Goodwill, I'm buying things you can use that like are all purpose. Like you buy a garbage can, I'm gonna get it at Goodwill because it's a couple bucks instead of buying a brand new one, whatever. Stuff like that. Any sort of little bits of necessary furnishing that you can get there. Stuff that isn't gross. Like I'm not using a used plunger, but you know what I mean? Anyway, go to a Goodwill, and much to my shock, this Goodwill actually had video games and not like Wii junk and sports games. They actually had real stuff. And I was like, not a bunch of stuff that was like crazy amazing. I wasn't finding Panzer Dragoon Saga or anything, but I found some cool stuff. I found an NES Classic with 2 controllers, but granted, these are the Nyko controllers, third-party wireless ones. It was only like $20, and I was like, I never had an NES Classic. This is the real one. This isn't one of the clone ones. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna jump on that. And it works perfectly, no issues. Cleaned it up a little bit, but yeah, I'm probably not going to realistically use this to play the NES. It has not been hacked, by the way. I might do that as a possibility. But yeah, no, it runs perfectly, and it's just a nice little display piece. And if I ever really wanted to, like, in a modern sense, play the NES, I guess I could do that, like a lot of people do. But that's, that's not who I am. I got to go with the real hardware as best I can. Although, to be fair, I use a retro AVS for the NES. But anywho, that's why I picked that up. One that I kind of regret getting, I saw a copy of Elder Scrolls Skyrim for the Switch. I have this game on multiple platforms like a lot of us do, and I was like, I don't really need it, but it was cheap. It was only $10. But I kind of regret it because I didn't realize how damaged the spine was when I bought it. It worked fine, but it's just like, I think a dog went at this thing or something. So that kind of sucks. I probably wouldn't have done that. The only thing that was kind of cool about this version is Bethesda included some Legend of Zelda costume stuff from Breath of the Wild, so that's exclusive to the Switch version, but aside from that, it's the same game. And then lastly, you'll see there, I have a PS4 Slim. I was a little shocked. I've had a PS4 since launch. I've had a PS4 Pro, I think, since launch, but I never really saw the point in getting a PS4 Slim. It was always just one of those things, like, if it was cheap, I'll pick it up and just add it to the collection. Really, that was the end of the goals. But there it was. And I think it was only like 50, 40, something like that. And I was like, you know what? That'll be useful as like an additional media player, additional Blu-ray, and of course all the benefits of an actual PS4. So yeah, I was happy to jump on that. Like, these games over here would work on this thing, So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, that's what I picked up from that. So after that, I actually went out to London. I was basically invited out there, and then once I was there, I kept getting invited to extra stuff. So I was like, all right, why not? So this big pile you see in front of me is from Square Enix. They contacted me and said, like, hey, would you like to come and visit our office and like check it out and stuff? And I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So I went over there in London. And they invited me in. They were really nice to me. Gave me water, coffee, all this stuff. We just did like an office tour and everything. Chit-chatted, that kind of thing. And they also just dumped a bunch of stuff on me. They did not have to do that. But they were very cool about it. So the first thing up, and I already asked them if this was okay, and they said yes. They gave me this. This is a plushie from the game Foam Stars of a little duck. What I asked them was, would you be okay if I gave this to my niece? She's 2. I think she'd really appreciate it. And they're like, yes, of course. So this is only temporarily mine. This belongs to my niece, effectively. However, the rest of the stuff stays with me. We've got a steelbook case for Final Fantasy, I believe that would be 16, right there. So there's no disc in there. It's just a steelbook. And then I'm kind of doing these a little out of order. They also hooked me up with a couple vinyl records. This is one for Life is Strange Double Exposure. This is completely sealed. I like my vinyl, believe it or not. I know I'm old, but I'm not that old that I remember the heyday of vinyl or anything, but I'm kind of part of that like hipster vinyl resurgence, even though I'm not a music guy whatsoever. I genuinely once was finally got a record player by a dude named Spock Avriel who donated one like a decade ago. And after I tried that, I was like, I'm a believer. I get it now. So every time I get like new vinyl, even if it's from stuff I'm not that familiar with, I'm like, that's cool. I bet it sounds really good. So at some point I'll give that a whirl, or a spin, as they say. And this one is from Just Cause 4. It only contains 4 songs, 2 on one side, 2 on the other. But again, promotional. These are both promotional items, I should have mentioned. But yeah, they were very cool about giving that to me. We'll talk about this smaller item in a second. Right now we're going to focus on the big one. So, this. I really wanted to open this for you guys. I did. But I've been doing a dance in my head about it, whether or not I should. And the fact that there's so many things in me pulling me back from that, there's some force in the universe telling me I shouldn't open this. So I'm like, I shouldn't. But I'll tell you what it is. This is a press kit for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Apparently they only made 50 of these, and they sent them to a few influencers, and that was really the only way to get these. Obviously a big game, franchise that means a lot to a lot of people, the game that meant a lot to a lot of people, and inside it contains a bunch of stuff. I'll put pictures up there. It has like a chocobo lamp in it, and just some promotional artwork and stuff like that. There's just a few photos online that you could appreciate. I thought about, of course, opening it myself, but I feel like I said, there's something telling me not to do this. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm supposed to make a separate video about it at some point. I don't know if I'm supposed to do this with someone who's like a super Final Fantasy enthusiast. I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do, but I do not feel I should open this yet, because the historian in me says this is probably the only sealed one of these left, because they told me they didn't have any others. This is just like the last one they got. And out of 50. So there was the only one left at their office. So I'd have to assume that's a possibility, right? So it just makes I can't bring myself to do it for something so unique. At least not yet. Maybe I could be, convinced to do that later. I don't know. But I guess other side from the photos, just kind of use your imagination, and maybe we'll revisit this one day, because that was really cool of Square Enix to do, but there's just something telling me hold off on this. So for now, that's what we're going to do. So yeah, very cool. And a huge shout out to Square Enix for hooking me up with all this great stuff. They did not have to do that, but they did it anyway. So thank you very much. And to those specifics, the individual watching, huge shout out to you, dude. Okay. While I was in the UK, on top of all that, I went to the London gaming market. I was invited just kind of out of nowhere for that. Like, they found out I was in the UK, and they're like, "Oh, dude, you want to come to our con on like Sunday?" I was like, "Yeah." So they just gave me like a guest badge, which is equivalently just like just a wristband. It's a swap, So it's not like they have like guest tables or a museum component or an arcade. It's literally just dealer after dealer after dealer. You're just there to buy stuff. And I was like, that's totally cool, no problem. So I wandered around. I got recognized a lot, and just like, why are you here? But it was cool. I was looking for the oddities, right? I love my oddities. And with the UK, I typically am searching for games that were exclusive or for systems that we simply never got. Now, from the exclusives perspective, I've largely completed that. But from an oddities perspective, I'm looking for things like Amstrad GX 4000 games, which sadly I did not find. It's a console that competed with the NES that never came out in North America. However, there's another one called the Commodore Amiga CD32. I believe it was 1993. Commodore releases a system basically designed to compete with the Super Nintendo and then the Mega Drive / Genesis. But because it was 5th gen hardware, it was sort of technically an initial competitor for like what would become the PlayStation and N64, although I don't think it survived anywhere near long enough to actually fight that battle. But the system failed spectacularly. It never was allowed to release in North America outside of Canada. So it didn't come to the US because of a legal injunction against Commodore. It did come out in Canada, but in like a pitiful release. And it did come out in parts of Europe, but the only ones that saw any success were a couple of Scandinavian regions, as well as the UK. And that's essentially it. So that's the best place to find games for it. And to that end, I found quite the treasure chest. So my policy on it is, if I don't have it and it's within budget, let's just do it. So we got John Barnes European Football. We got Power Games. It's also in German, so that implies that this thing probably came out in Germany. Global Effect. Insight Technology. It's kind of like a computer, so as a result, it also has a lot of weird stuff like that. This one's also compatible with the CD-TV, which was a different sort of Commodore console computer. This one I've told is actually good. Shadow Fighter. I don't know if I was being lied to, but I was told that this one was good. The quote on the front is, "Who needs Mortal Kombat when you've got this?" Mathematic, which is entirely in German. I'm starting to think Germany might have liked this system, although I've never seen an Amiga CD32 game there. Gamer's Delight, which just looks like a... Interesting, they have the US flag on it, even though it wasn't released here. And the Guinness Disc of World Records 2nd edition, which I'm betting is comically out of date. All the same, I just wanted content for the Amiga CD32, and I came back satisfied. I want to give a big shout out to a guy named Andy, because not only does he run that con, he was also the one that sold me this stuff, and he gave me a nice little deal on it, so I really appreciate that. There will be videos of that, or a video of that, I should say, on the channel at some point of all the game hunting I really did there. It'll be fun, but not yet. It's coming, though. The other thing, I got a couple other items there, though. One, is an Xbox demo disc, which shouldn't be that shocking. I love my original Xbox content and my demo discs, but I will admit I don't really pursue the North American ones, and I don't really pursue the European ones. I'd be lying if I said I understand why, because I get really excited when I find Japanese ones. Shrug. I don't know. But this one I picked up specifically once I saw it, because this has Shenmue 2 as a demo on it, and thus I was like, oh, it's more the Shenmue collector in me than the Xbox collector in me, even though there's crossover there. But yeah, no, I was happy to pick that up. And then lastly, well, not technically lastly, but lastly as far as what you're currently seeing, we got... I was given two things by a buddy of mine named Chris, who represents the ZX Spectrum, Sinclair's like ZX Spectrum Next project. They have a Kickstarter going on now, I think, unless it's ended by now. I'm not totally sure, but I think it's still going on. I'll put a link in the description. I put out a video on this thing already, so you can get more information on it, so we're not really going to focus on it. But he gave me this for free. He also hooked me up with, randomly enough, a Shenmue pin, which was funny because he was like, oh, I don't think you have one of these. Forgetting that the last time I saw him, he gave me this exact pin, which is like just kind of adorable in its own way. But yeah, that was very cool. So huge shout out to Chris, huge shout out to Andy, everybody over at London Gaming Market, obviously to Square Enix, Toyrad, etc. But we're not done. There is one more thing, and this is a story that I'm hoping you'll just indulge me on. There is one more thing I got. It's not video game related, but I think you'll think it's really very cool, and it's really the story that I think you might find more compelling than anything else, so we're just going to tell it. So in 1995, I believe that was about the year. Around then, I grew up in Chicago, where I still am, in the 90s. So the height of the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls dynasty era. And when you grow up in that kind of thing, you inevitably become a fan of it. Like, here's a photo of me as a little kid that I found of me like wearing Bulls stuff, even at a very young age. Like, I was just a big fan. And so what we think happened here is that in 1995, that's roughly the time we're thinking, my mother went out and got me something, probably for Christmas or my birthday. Not totally sure, but she hid it, you know, as parents do when they buy something like that if they don't want the kid to find it. Now, I assume when I was a kid, I know that I was kind of a scavenger. I would kind of like wander around the house and just like look for stuff. And I'm betting she just didn't want me to find this. So she hid it in a place that was very unlikely that I would ever dig, which was in the back of her closet. She had a bedroom with 3 closets. And one of them, she had just put a bunch of bags, paper bags, with all sorts of miscellaneous content. Like, we're talking childhood artwork, tax information, whatever, miscellaneous stuff to a little kid, all just absolute boring content that you would never pay any attention to. And we're pretty sure that in 1995 she did that. She puts this thing in there. Then we're pretty sure she simply forgot about its existence entirely. And fast forward to 2020, my mother passes away kind of out of nowhere from an undetected cancer. And if you guys watched my channel at the time, you know that hit me really hard, as you can expect, because we were very close. 2 years after that, the home that I grew up in, that she had been the owner of, which I had inherited, had a sudden fire due to an explosion from what is called arcing, which is I had a lamp plugged in that hadn't even been on, which is a terrifying thought. And it causes, if the lamp cable or any electronic cable is damaged, or it receives damage for any sort of reason, energy can pool up in the cable and eventually it explodes. And it exploded into a chair, which created a bigger explosion, which knocked out a window, and just a fire ensued and effectively destroyed her home that she had built and the home I had grown up in. And fire department came. If you guys remember the videos a couple years ago when I was talking about this initially, then you know all this. So when you go through something like that, the process, there's a lot to the insurance process and all that, but we don't need to focus on any of that. You basically, what happens is a group comes in and says, okay, here's everything that's salvageable, and all the stuff that's salvageable they take away and they clean and restore to best of their ability. And anything they deem unsalvageable, they leave in the house for disposal. Once you reach that point, it is incumbent upon you, as the owner, to go through the ashes of your home and remove anything that means anything to you. And even if it's considered unsalvageable, or if you think you can do a better job, or whatever it is. Which was, in of itself, difficult on an emotional level, for variously obvious reasons, but also just from a logistical level, because it's just a lot of physical labor, and it smells, and it's terrible, and it's depressing, and it's hard to get people to help you with that. But eventually, myself and a few friends over time took all these things that we thought might be helpful or useful or, you know, salvageable in our definition, and moved them into the garage. Now, this would include things where we didn't know what the contents even were, like, you know, going into a closet and seeing like a tote bag and it's just filled with just miscellaneous whatever. You're just like, I don't know what this is, just grab the bag, go, whatever. Or if it's specific items, you're like, oh, that was my such and such toy that meant a lot to me. Yeah, it's got some ash on it, but maybe I can clean it. Let's put it in the box. You get where I'm going with this? Just anything. So it goes to the garage, and eventually they do the demolition of the house, and they effectively rebuild the house. And as they're doing that, they eventually move content from that garage to the basement of the house. And there it sits for another year or two, until it's finally been completed. At which time, it is incumbent upon me again to go through every single one of these boxes and items that survived and just see what's what. See what I can salvage, see what's trash, see what's worth salvaging, etc. Now, at the time of this recording, maybe it was about a week ago, I was doing exactly that because I had some spare time. I was doing that, and I stumbled across like a brown bag, paper bag, and I just dump it out as I'm used to doing, and it's just family photo. Here's a picture of my grandmother. You know, here's some childhood artwork I did. You know, just whatever, right? And then I pull out this like heavy thing, and I look right at it, and I can't believe what I'm seeing. I film it, and I post it in Discord, in my server, which you should join, by the way. I take photos, and I post that story in a very truncated manner on Twitter and Facebook, and even here on YouTube in just the chat section. Because what I found was that original gift that my mother had placed there in 1995. It was an autographed copy of a Michael Jordan photo. Michael Jordan, His Airness, signed this. My mother purchased it. There's even a stamp on the back from exactly where it came from. She purchased it no doubt with the intent of giving it to me, probably in late 1995, maybe 96, and just forgot. And I discovered it. It's now 5 years since she passed. She passed in July of 2020. And 3 years since the fire. And I got a gift from her 30 years after she bought it, due to just a series of coincidences. Something that meant a lot to me at the time, that to this day still means a lot to me. I still love my Chicago Bulls, as bad as they are. This is something that, without a doubt, I mean, the frame is beautiful. It had to be cleaned. I had to wipe ash off of it. But I can put it in the house and remember that. Anyway, sorry. It just means a lot. So, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you all later.